Mayor Pike?
Yes.
Motion passes 4-0.
Item 7A.
Item number 7A, an ordinance of the City Commission of the City of Opa-locka, Florida, amending the annual adopted general proprietary and general revenue funds budget for the fiscal year commencing October 1, 2019, and ending September 30th, 2020, adjusting revenues and expenditures as reflected in Exhibit A, providing for the expenditure of funds established by the budget, authorizing the city manager to take actions, providing for appropriation of all budgets and expenditures, providing for fees consistent with appropriations and amendment, providing for incorporation of recitals, providing for conflict and repealer, providing for severability, providing for an effective date. This is sponsored by the city manager.
All right, do I have a motion?
Move it.
Moved by Commissioner Burke,
Second.
second by Vice Mayor Davis. Mr. Manager?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I will ask Mr. Anthony to come up to the podium to go over budget amendment and answer any questions of the commission. Mr. Anthony.
Hi, good evening. Bob Anderson, budget. Yet another budget amendment. As I think everybody's aware that at the end of the fiscal year, which ended on 30 September, the city has 60 days to make any final budget amendments for the fiscal year. We did offer up a budget amendment last month in October, which you did pass. This is a follow-on. The details are in your package. I'm going to try and hit the highlights very quickly, and then I'm available to answer any questions that may come up. If you refer to what's in your package, first off, at the moment, there are 24 items in this budget amendment. As you know, this is predicated on the work that the accountants are doing in terms of year-end close. It's a work in progress. The accountants continue to finalize the accounts. I say this because this is going to come back for a second hearing next week, and the numbers will change somewhat. But just to summarize what's here tonight, we have 24 items. 5 of them are of a category that I would say are material, and I'll go through those in some detail. One is strictly an accounting item. What happened there is the budget is in one division, the actuals were recorded in another division, and at this point it's just easier to move the budget to where the actuals are rather than vice versa. So that has zero impact. It's just purely an accounting. And then if you're looking at your package, it makes reference to 19 more smaller items. As any second grader will tell you, once you take 6 out, it should be 18. I apologize for that. So you have 18 smaller items, in aggregate about $80,000. Each one is about $4,000. It involves things like small tools, it involves overtime and things of that nature. So I'm not going to spend any time on that. It is in your package. If you have any questions, I will stand ready to answer those. What I will do very quickly is address the 5 that I categorize as more substantive. The breaks down as follows. One of the budget amendments is for $30,000, as you can see from your notes. It has to do with the police vehicles, repairing and painting them, and it is funded from the Special Law Enforcement Fund. We've had a lot of discussion about general fund. This has no impact whatsoever on the general fund. It's a totally independent source of funds. So that has no impact on the fiscal well-being of the city. Second item on your list is $23,000. There were some fiscal year-end acquisition of equipment for pump stations. That's $23,000. That is funded from the Water Sewer Fund, and again, has no impact on the general fund, which is our prime concern at this point. Third item was police department did some year-end acquisition of public safety equipment. That's $45,000. That will come from the general fund. Fourth item on the list is $39,000 for the building maintenance division. Has to do with some bathroom repairs, roof repairs, and a project to provide lighting for a parking lot. Last item has to do with our Florida Municipal Insurance Trust insurance. The insurance payments, we record 12 a year. The 12th payment is actually the first payment of the new fiscal year. That is at a higher rate, and consequently, we had to do some budget amendments to cover the differential. That is funded from savings elsewhere in the risk management fund, so that has no impact on the general fund per se. That basically covers the highlights of the 24 items in the budget amendment. As I said, when we talk about it next week, these numbers will change slightly. But I stand ready to answer any question you may have on what I've covered or any of the details that are in your package.
Thank you, Mr. Anderson. Are there any questions for the budget administrator or Mr. Manager? All right. Thank you, Mr. Anderson.
Thank you.
Any, discussion on this item? All right, Madam Clerk?
Vice Mayor Davis,
Yes.
Commissioner Bass,
Yes.
Commissioner Burke,
Yes.
Mayor Pikett.
Yes.
Motion passes 4-0 first reading.
Thank you, Madam Attorney.
An ordinance of the City Commission of the City of Opa-locka, Florida, amending the annual adopted general proprietary and special revenue funds budget for fiscal year commencing October 1, 2020 and ending September 30th, 2021, adjusting revenues and expenditures as reflected in Exhibit A, providing for expenditure of funds established by the budget, authorizing the city manager to take certain actions, providing for appropriation of all budgets and expenditures, providing for fees consistent with appropriations and amendment, providing for incorporation of recitals, providing for conflict and repealer, providing for severability, providing for an effective date. This is sponsored by the city manager.
All right, do I have a motion on this item?
Move it.
Moved by Vice Mayor Davis,
Second.
second by Commissioner Bass. Mr. Manager? Oh, hold up. This is a public hearing. Madam Clerk, do we have any public comments on this item?
No, Mr. Mayor.
All right, double check. All right. Mr. Manager, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is introducing the next budget amendment. I will ask Mr. Anthony to come up and explain this, as he did before with the last budget amendment. And the manager's office or budget will be prepared to answer any questions of the commission.
Good evening, Bob Anderson again. 44 days into the new fiscal year, and here I am with another budget amendment. Primary reason for this budget amendment is there are a couple projects that really want to keep momentum on. They were intended for last year. For whatever reason, they were not funded. Want to bring them forward this time because if we waited until the normal cycle, they would not be approved probably until the January, February time period. But we think it's important to keep the momentum on them. So whereas the budget amendment we discussed a moment ago had 24 items, this one has 10 items. Categorized as follows. 3 of them are related to CIP, 2 of them are carry forwards or brought forwards from FY20. Third one is something that has arisen since the budget was booked, and I'll cover that in some detail. 3 of these are accounting items and have absolutely no impact. They're just moving things around between funds. I'll take you through that very briefly. One is related to the County CARES Act. As I think you know, the city has been authorized a grant allocation of a little over $2 million. Most of that funding will come directly from the county to the recipients. However, there will be some administrative expenses. At the moment, I'm showing that as $50,000. I think based on what I've heard, it took a slightly different direction this morning. When you see it again next week, it'll probably be a larger number. But the key thing to remember, it's 100% reimbursable. The only reason we show it at all is we have to pay the bills. We have to have a budget on the books to pay those bills, and then the county in turn will reimburse us. So this number will change. And of the 10, the 3 remaining ones actually require a change in expenditure, and I'll go through those in a little detail. If you're following your presentation package, I'm going to cover first the 3 CIP projects. The first one is the Burlington Canal. That project was intended to be gotten underway last year. For various reasons, it was not funded. So we're suggesting that it be brought into the budget at this time so that we don't lose momentum, have to wait till February to actually start to move forward on. Second one is pump station number 7, which I have here as not being funded last year. I found out today that actually there was a purchase order. So by the time you see this next week, this will be deleted, but it's going to come back later in a different form. The third one, and probably as important as any of the 3, I think you know that within the city's water service area, there are some Miami Gardens accounts. Those accounts have service lines, which are somewhat old. Service line is the connection between the water main and the property itself. They're old. It was known they were going to have to be replaced. However, in the last couple of months, there have been a couple failures. And then put on top of that, the city of Miami Gardens has come out and said, we are about to resurface our roadways. If you think you have projects that are going to tear them up, let's do it now, because once those roadways are done, we really don't want you to start digging it up. So this is a project for about $200,000 to be funded out of the water sewer fund balance, and is felt to be important now because of the work that's going on in Miami Gardens. The next category were accounting changes. There are 3 of them. I'll try and explain them. I think they're pretty straightforward. The first one has to do with the CRA. The CRA, when the budget was put together, and if you read through the details on it, indicated that they were thinking of doing projects related to streetscapes, facades, and also park amenities. Unfortunately, when the budget was being put together, those accounts didn't exist, so I lumped them all together in a kind of a nondescript account called promotional activity. These accounts are now becoming available. It just makes sense to break out the budget where it was intended as opposed to what's in the budget book this time. Second one has to do with revenue. Right now, the red light camera service provider sends the city receipts every month. And those are 2 components. One is the component that's due the city, and that's revenue we've earned and take credit for. Second portion is actually money to be passed on to the state. Up to now, the city has always shown that as revenue, but it's not really revenue. The city hasn't earned it. The city's sole function is to pass it through. The service provider could just as easily have sent that money directly to the state. So what this amendment does is, as I said, within the revenue side, you have the state portion of receipts that we get, and an expenditure side, we have actually paying out those funds to the state. That's not an expenditure because it's not an expense the city incurred. So what this amendment's going to do is going to back out the revenue. It's going to back out the expenditure or the pass through to the state. Has no impact on the bottom line. It just converts the accounts into truly reporting what's revenue and not having it confused by pass through that all the city's sole responsibility is just to give the money to the state. The third one is of that nature as well. On your utility bills, you have Durham charges. What's occurring there is the city is billing on behalf of the county Durham fees. And then we turn around and pass it on to the county, and we show it as expenditure right now. It's not revenue we earn, it's not expenditure, it's not a cost to the city. So the proposal here is to take those out of the accounts. When you take the revenue out or the receipts out, equal amount of pass-through revenue has no impact on the bottom line. So hopefully that's straightforward. Both of the last 2, what they're doing is just recognizing that we are receiving funds that are really due to somebody else, and we shouldn't take it as either revenue or expense. The next one, I'll address very quickly, is the CARES Act for the community support for rent relief and also mortgage relief. And I think it may understand, talking to the interim finance director, it may also start to cover a couple other things. But again, whatever dollars we put in the budget now is going to be 100% reimbursable. The last 3 very quickly do involve some additional expenditures. First one has to do with unemployment insurance. In the private sector, they just pay to the state unemployment insurance every month. In municipalities, the way it works is the municipality is billed if and when one of the municipality's employees actually goes to the state and takes advantage of benefits. We did get a bill recently for a couple $1,000. We did not budget for any of it because it has not been the city's experience the last couple of years to receive those kind of bills. So we are suggesting putting a $10,000 budget amendment in to cover this bill and the possibility of any further like bills during the course of the year. Second one is for $1,600. It has to do with meeting the needs of the new commissioners in terms of administrative stuff, having to do with business cards, having to do with plates for their positions on the dais, plates having to, or door plates having to do with their office doors, small amount to cover a swearing-in ceremony, total of $1,600. Last item is a little more significant. If you're looking at your package, you'll see that $75,000. There is an account set up to pay employees who leave, city employee who have unused leave time. We had 2 employees who recently departed. In aggregate, their unused leave time total up to $68,000. So that pretty well devastated that budget, and we're proposing here is to replenish it with $75,000, just as a provision for future employees who may leave. That covers the 10. If I can answer any questions, I'm certainly willing to do it this time.
Thank you, Mr. Anthony. Any questions or comments for Mr. Anthony?
Mr. Mayor,
Vice Mayor Davis?
thank you. Mr. Anathan, if I could just jump back a little to the red light camera revenue and just kind of how we redirecting those revenues. How would that ultimately affect the city's bottom line as far as our financial position? Because I remember when we voted in past years to, I guess, reacclimate the program, there was a revenue shortfall and in addition to the debt service that's also owed. And at the time, there was a need to showcase those funds on our books. So I guess here we are, we haven't necessarily collected what was originally, I guess what we budgeted for, what we were projected. So we're just kind of cleaning that up to reflect.
No, sir, I apologize. I didn't present it properly then.
Okay.
Basically, what we're talking about is going forward. We're not talking about past due red light camera fees that are still under discussion. We're talking about what's this year. For every day,
Projected, okay.
the revenue, the receipts that come in are composed of 2 parts. One is the portion due to the city, and that's city revenue, we've earned it. Second part is just the state portion of it. And for every dollar that comes in, we have what we're calling expenditure, dollar going out to the state. What we're proposing is removing the portion of receipts that we've been calling revenue, removing the payouts to the state, again, for current year. It's dollar for dollar, no impact on the bottom line.
Okay. And hold on 1 second. My next question was relative to the CARES Act funding for the community program. The administrative fee you said was around $50,000, and I guess that's just current. So we're still waiting on final numbers. Has that been finalized or?
I think I've been told by the interim finance director that it's probably going to be a much larger number. The approach has changed, I think, the last couple of days. They're looking at a couple other options, which has some more implications for the city in terms of what they have to pay out. But again, the key thing to keep in mind is it's 100% reimbursable. We just have to put it on our books because we're actually going to pay the bill and then turn around and submit it to the county for reimbursement.
Okay. And being that is included in this most recent budget amendment, I'm assuming that we are in a financial position to put those funds up.
The answer is yes. And again, it is going to be reimbursed by the county in a reasonably timely manner. So even if we didn't think we were in a sound financial position, it should not be a problem. But the answer is it puts no strains on the city.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Anna.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Manager?
through the mayor, Vice Mayor Davis. So what kind of took place today is we're expanding the program a little bit further out. So the administrative fee we budgeted for was $50,000. That's going to go up to $150,000 as of today's meeting. We're doing rental and mortgage assistance, and we're going to do a grocery program as well, so we can kind of cut through the money in an expedient fashion. So we're expanding the program from mortgage and rent. We were looking at utilities. Utilities are a little bit difficult because the documentation requirement is great. Plus, it requires the city to actually make direct payments to the various utility companies. We felt based on the timeline that we had to expend the funds that was not feasible. but we did find that doing a grocery program through gift cards, the county has agreed for us to allow applicants to use an affidavit of financial suitability. So one-page document they're required to get signed and notarized, basically saying that this is their position, and we basically issue out those gift cards. We have already brought in a person to oversee the programming. We need to bring in additional staffing. We're going to expand where we're going to use multiple park facilities, as well as some park staff to help administer the program. A portion of the program, all the program actually is going to be handled electronically. IT is coming up with IT solution for online application process and to have staff available to assist with online applications. So we want to try to do this fully automated. Individuals need assistance in doing those applications, then we'll have different sites available for those individuals to come in to assist with doing those things. The goal is, and I want to make it clear, the county's goal and our goal is to spend the $2.1 million. But as the commission is aware, mayor and vice mayor is aware, the county issued those funds to the cities quite late in the game. That's the CARES Act funding was available earlier in the summer. The city's allocations recently got approved maybe about a month ago. And so programming wise, we want to make sure that we efficiently and effectively use the money. We want to utilize the money. We looked at the county's track record in regards to rental assistance, and their program is not fully successful, and they're having issues spending funds in regards to their own rental assistance program. That also is extended to Opa-locka residents, by the way. And the amount of participation from Opa-locka residents has been significantly reduced, and it hasn't been the numbers that we kind of expected. So we wanted to make sure that we had, number one, programming in place where we can expend the funds in a place that's needed. We know groceries and food is needed. We have a weekly food drive, so we know the demand is there. The documentation requirement of an affidavit is a requirement that the county's approved, and the county will actually be the entity getting audited because they're the ones that are recipient of the CARES Act money, not the city. And so Haggerty, their consultant, has agreed that a one-page affidavit is doing it. I know one other city that's doing it currently in infancy. About 3 weeks ago, they were having issues because the biggest question to the county was, well, how we're going to certify or acknowledge the individual's income level, or what kind of documentation is going to be required. So I know Haggerty at that time has done research with the federal government as well as county entities, and they agreed recently to the one-page affidavit. So basically money coming in, money going out. The only thing that the city will be expending is the administrative fee that's going to be reimbursed, as well as the monies for the grocery program. Those are monies that have to be fronted by the city in order to get the cards to be distributed. The rental assistance program is actually going to be administered by the county. We're going to coordinate it here. The county is still going to review. We have staff here to review the paperwork. The county is still going to review the paperwork, and the county will be releasing those fundings directly to the renter or the mortgagee or however the application is set up. So those are direct funds that leave the county directly to that specific entity. The only thing that the city is actually expending is the $150,000 administrative fee and the monies for the grocery gift cards. That, of course, is money that's reimbursable back to the city from the county through the CARES Act.
Okay. Is the timeline still the same, given December of this year? Or did they opt to extend it?
So the timeline is still the same. The city has to expend $2.1 million by the end of December. The city of Opa-locka was very blessed and fortunate to be the only city that did not get their funding request reduced. So we requested 2.1 and we got 2.1. Every other city, their funding request was reduced. I think Florida City and ourselves, I think we put up a very good case based on our just poverty level within the city and just in the various circumstances that us in Florida City kind of deals with uniquely in Miami-Dade County. compared to the other cities. So they opted not to reduce our numbers. So I think that's why it's been a very imperative to me to make sure these monies are kind of expended, but in a responsible way. As you all are aware, City of Opa-locka is under a magnifying glass for anything and everything that we do. And so my meeting with the finance department is my level of comfort comes with making sure that nothing brings any exposure to the city. And that's why we made sure that the affidavit requirement was proper based on the county's thought process in regards to the grocery program. And also that's why we're agreeing to work with the county to administer the rent and mortgage assistance program for those funds to directly come from the county to those vendors.
Okay, and you said we had a person come on, and they're still gonna be doing the vetting of the applications and that kind of activity?
Yeah, so the individuals are going to come on along with our park staff to open up 2 locations. We discussed marketing today and PR through the firm. Finance has been authorized to reach out to them to start coordination as far as that is concerned. Our goal is to expend the money to the 31st. It's going to be challenging, but we're going to try our best to kind of do it. You know, my initial thought process was just a rental assistance program and mortgage assistance program. But after the recent events and just historically what we've seen since the pandemic, we want to expend as much money as possible. So that's why we expanded to the grocery portion.
Okay, and that was my concern too, because the last thing we want to do is get 2.1 million to help our residents during these difficult times and not to be able to expend those funds. So thank you, Mr. Manager, for all the hard work you've been doing. Thank you to staff and everybody who's been in contact with the county commissioner or just anyone about these funds, because it's really needed in our city. You know, we're going through difficult times. I think we were one of the only municipalities not to in our surrounding area not to proffer any sort of rental and housing assistance. And as you know, I've been advocating for this quite some time. So I'm very excited to see this program go forward. I look forward to our residents and our community taking full advantage and you know, just getting through this difficult time. We're better together and we're one community. So thank you.
Mr. Mayor,
Commissioner Burke?
to the manager, Mr. Manager, you're saying with this the rental program and the mortgage program, the money will be going to the agency and not to the person.
That's correct. They have to show a certain criteria of eligibility. And typically, the program is eligible to recipients that have had issues either making rent or making mortgage payments. They have to have that documentation showing past due balance, and those monies are expended directly to the third party that those monies are owed to. It doesn't go to the actual recipient themselves. It goes to that third party, whoever the lien holder is for the mortgage, whoever the agency is that manages the rent, it goes directly to them. And various requirements that need to be made, especially in regards to the entity being registered and various different other requirements that we're going to do. The county is assisting us in managing the program. We're handling the PR piece, the application piece here to have assistance for our residents, but we're trying to make this totally paperless as possible. So we're working on that. We will have, like I said, we will have staffing available to assist individuals with the application process and uploading and scanning documents if need be. But our purpose is really to kind of promote this program and push as best as possible. I know today is November 12th, and I've put great emphasis in pushing this program forward. And as I stated previously, as the commission and mayor and vice mayor is aware, the county just recently opened up these funds about a month ago. A lot of cities have not even started expending the funds yet. And they're eager for us to spend this $2.1 million. So I want to try to do it in a responsible way. I cannot sit here and make any guarantees that we're going to expend 2.1 million. And my hopes is whatever CARES Act funds that are left, that the federal government will extend that deadline beyond December 31st, but we're going to do our best. But I want to do it in a very structured and responsible way, not just haphazardly spend $2.1 million and there's potential audit trail that has to occur and we have to have our documentation intact.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Commissioner Bass?
To the manager? You mentioned the food program, rental, and mortgage. Have you considered, or is it too late to add roofing? Because if
I-
you go through our community, there are lots and lots of tarps on our residents' roof, and that's a big problem in our city. And second question would be, when do you anticipate these programs will start?
Okay, so the first question, as far as expanding the programs, that timeline is kind of elapsed. No cities are allowed to amend the programs at this point. So extending to roofing or any other programming would not work. The only reason we're able to deal with the grocery piece and potentially the utility piece, which we decided today not to deal with, is because that was in our initial proposal to the county, are those various programs. And then we made a determination of what programs were actually going to be successful in Opa-locka and what staff capacity that we have in order to expend those funds. So that answers those questions. Did I miss anything, Madam Commissioner? So time anticipation is within the next 7 days. So we're looking to ramp this up quite quickly.
Mr. Mayor, one last thing.
Vice
Uh,
Mayor Davis?
Through the mayor to the manager, all I ask is that you work with our apartment complexes throughout the city, definitely our multifamily complexes, organizations that work in real estate. The Opa-locka CDC owns a lot of properties throughout the city and could really be an asset in getting the word out and really letting our renters and homeowners know that this program exists. So I just ask that you work and coordinate with those entities to make sure that we are getting that information out.
Through the mayor. Mr. Vice Mayor, first, thank you for your support in regards to the program and kind of ushering it forward. We are working with community development, the city's finance department, my office, to coordinate the program. So with the community's development's relationship with Opa-locka CDC as well as myself, I'm sure we won't have a problem in making those communications. As you know, community development did the initial opinion and research on the programming initially when you presented it prior to CARES Act funding being made available. So we've done the appropriate research and we will make sure those entities are reached out to in an appropriate way.
Thank you.
First of all, this item, I want to give much respect and shout out to Vice Mayor Davis for securing this $2.1 million for our community. I think that deserves a round of applause, my brother. Much respect. Ever since we were in COVID, Vice Mayor has continued to push for rental assistance programs. When the money came down, we working with the city manager was able to submit that application and make sure it's successful and do what we need to do to ensure that it was passed by the county commission. So that's a very significant achievement. So that's going to bring a lot of assistance to our residents. And then to hear tonight the level of detail that the manager's office has put forth and being very creative and making sure that this is as widely available with groceries and affidavit, making sure that it is financially accountable with the track record, creating 2 locations and people to assist with the application. Much respect, city manager, for taking the time to really make sure this is a successful program. We look forward to seeing that executed. So thank you for yourself and your whole staff that have made sure that our people in our community get the help that they desperately need during this time. So thank you, Mr. Manager.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes, sir.
First, thank you. I appreciate the acknowledgement. Myself and staff have been working very diligently, but I would like to thank my staff, specifically community development, our finance department, for really stepping up to the plate. Ms. Lazier and her staff, as you are aware, in the middle of an audit preparation. So they've dubbed out a very small portion of their time, I assure you, very small portion of their time to assist in kind of putting these programs together and putting dollar and cents. And like I said, my emphasis today was to ensure that these monies are expended. And so today we made a lot of firm decisions based on my level of comfort to make sure these dollars are expended. Again, I cannot give any guarantee that we're going to expend through 2.1 million, but we're going to try our best to get this money done. And also I would like to bring up, while we're reaching out to our apartment complexes and various different things like that, please know that there's a certain level of accountability that my office will be putting forth on these apartment complexes that I think they're about to get some of this 2.1 million of this money without being held accountable in regards to various issues that are going on in the city. As you all are aware, we have major flooding in the city, this stuff that's been going on for several years. My office has finally kind of grappled a handle on this. And I think this is another way we can kind of hold these apartment building owners and management companies accountable, to ensure at least the dialogue is open, to ensure that, listen, you're getting government funding to assist your bottom line. What are you going to do for our residents to make sure they're taken care of? And I think we demonstrated that this week, that my office and my staff will no longer hold accountable, will no longer stand by and allow things like this to occur without holding individuals accountable. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. That's exactly why we brought you here. I really appreciate this. This is amazing to hear. To all those that are watching, make sure if your mortgage or rent behind, please keep up to date with the City of Opa-locka. Follow the Facebook page so you get first notice about these programs. Mr. Manager, I would offer if there is I don't know how much was allocated for PR, but I strongly believe that it's important that if we can get flyers out, handbills, and they're distributed to all of our schools in the area in connection with the principals, so that every child that leaves that school office has this program in their hand. And then we also have time to go out and pass this out at our grocery stores and our apartment complexes so that people know that this program exists. I would love the City of Opa-locka to be a model for getting the community word out and expending as much of these dollars as swiftly as possible so that as many residents in our community can get the relief they desperately need during this time. So if you need any assistance, officers are all more than happy to open to be there. And I know my colleagues will definitely pull up our sleeves and get out there and make sure we spread this word out so that every family in this community know about this opportunity and can take advantage of this opportunity. So
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I assure you, Jessica is coming up with a PR plan. So I assure you that you all will be direct participants in it, because we cannot be successful without the participation of our elected officials. So I will be reaching out to you all through Mr. Grice or directly in regards to scheduling outreach and trying to get the program pushed out.
thank you. Any other comments or questions on this resolution, this budget item for Mr. Anderson? All right, Mr. Anderson, I'll continue to say that the level of detail that you provide with these budget amendments and these budget is stellar, and much respect for giving a line item to where all of anybody within the City of Opa-locka, our public, those that are watching, can easily look at this information, see the line item changes, understand in the comment section why those line item changes are there, and then get a summary with our PowerPoint that breaks down a large overview. That level of detail and attention, I do want to take a moment to take note of, because I appreciate it. And I think our residents will really appreciate it. So thank you very much for such a thorough detail. The only question I have, actually it's a comment in regards to the red light camera. I am extremely happy to see that modification, because basically it states that we will not hold on to any state funds, which we have in the past that led to us getting into debt with this red light camera, and that we're going to make sure that it completely goes straight to the state moving forward. So thank you very much for making this modification to ease the process and ensure that we pay our debts and we are fiscally responsible during this financial oversight. So thank you very much, Mr. Anderson. All right, if there's no other comments or questions, Madam Clerk, roll call.
Commissioner Bass,
It's a yes.
Commissioner Burke,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Davis,
Yes.
Mayor Pike.
Yes.
Motion passes 4-0 first reading.
All right, we have two discussion items. I asked to put these items on our agenda because recently we received a letter from the JLAC committee notifying the city that we are at risk of being delinquent on our audits, and that we needed to submit a timeline by December 7th or communicate. We submit the audits by December 7th or a timeline. And I wanted to make sure that we discuss this as a commission. It's very important for us, being that we are in a financial oversight and being how extensive the JLAC committee has been over the past year in regards to this audit, so where it was a huge conversation about the fate of our city because of us being behind in these audits. I want to make sure that we take some time to discuss where we are and we get updates from staff and from the city manager on where we are with submitting this outstanding audit that we currently have, so that everyone is very clear about what we're doing to ensure that we do not lose any funding for this upcoming year. So, Mr. Manager, if you can give us an update on the status of our audit, explain to us and the public about this letter we received and what we're doing about it.
Understood. So I'll give a general introduction. I asked Ms. Lazier to step up to provide an update, but as she comes up, I would like to say, first, Mr. Mayor, thank you for placing this item on the agenda. As you are aware, you know, we do provide updates as best as we possibly can to the commission in regards to our audits. And I understand the level of detail as well as the level of transparency that you desire in regards to communicating with the public our financial position and what's going on, especially when we receive correspondence. So the correspondence that we received, the standard correspondence that's sent to all cities once a date passes and their audits are not submitted based on state statute. The city has been in detailed discussions with the JLAC coordinators, as well as the governor's designee in regards to the city's financial recovery plan, as well as our status in regards to submitting to the audits. Based on the conversation that staff has had with JLAC, JLAC has agreed to the extension to March 15th of 2021, submit this current audit. That's based on a work plan that was introduced and submitted to myself for review and shared with the JLAC coordinators. As everybody is aware, JLAC committee appointments have not been fully made, and JLAC is actually not scheduled to meet until January, February timeframe. Staff, as always in JLAC, wants to ensure that the cities have their appropriate responses submitted before the committee meets, so they can provide a status update. And typically, the JLAC committee does accept all staff recommendations that are made through their coordinators. In saying that, I think the city is in an excellent position compared to in the past, as far as the preparation for the audits, bank reconciliations being done, and actual preparatory work. The only issue that I see is with the asset audit, which I just actually received communication today in regards to doing an emergency expenditure to bring on a firm to do our physical asset inventory. I have not in detail reviewed it. I just received this email today, and I will be making a decision by midweek next week of what firm that we're going to go with in regards to it, and make sure it's appropriately information is appropriately provided to the commission so they're aware. The asset inventory is considered part of the city's financial emergency. So emergency expenditure will most likely be authorized and approved. I do have an update meeting tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. With the governor's designee of our financial emergency to discuss this emergency expenditure that needs to be made to get us up and going. In regards to the asset management inventory that needs to be done, that's one of the final pieces that's needed for us to have a fully clean audit. And I think that is the goal for the commission, right? To not have audits that are not fully in compliance. I think the city has made a lot of excellent strides in the past as far as its audits have improved. I do believe this asset inventory is the last piece of the puzzle. One thing that the governor's designee did share with us, and this was shared with us some months ago, that regardless of the status of this upcoming audit, the state would like to see 3 to 5 clean audits prior to releasing the city from a financial emergency. So in saying that and making that clarification, because we get this audit done by March 15th, the city is still 3 to 5 years out from being removed from financial emergency. Getting the asset audit done, what that does is that may get us out of financial emergency 1 year earlier because we have a clean audit a year earlier. And that's what we're striving to do. But understand, it's been clarified through the governor's designee that the governor will not release the city from a financial emergency. And they see a sufficient number of clean audits from the city because of the city's history of being in financial emergency on multiple occasions. And so they want to make sure the city is running in a stable way for multiple years before being released from financial emergency. Now, as far as the eaches and kind of the individual detail, I have Ms. Lazar brief that, and me and her, myself or her, we are prepared to answer any questions of the commission or anyone else. Thank you.
Good evening, Vice Mayor, Mayor, and the commissioners. I think the manager provided in-depth discussion about the discussions that we had with JLAC in regards to the letter. So the letter basically stated that the city had until December 7th to submit its audit, and if it could not be done by December 7th, to please provide some type of timeline. So we thought it was best to communicate with JLAC staff to get an idea and to provide them with some viewpoints on why we could not meet the December 7th deadline, because we realized that that was impossible for the city at its current state. And we communicated with them that we thought that by the time that we could finalize the books and records to get them in a state to be prepared to be audited, to select a new audit firm and then go through the audit, that the December 7th timeline would be too aggressive. And instead, we discussed with them a more realistic timeline, and we decided that we would try to get the audit done by February 26th, and then give us an additional 15 days or so that we could have a workshop, take it to resolution, and have time to submit it to the state, which would then push us to about March 15th. So they were in agreement, and they stated that they were really just wanting the city to communicate its position and to make sure that if we cannot meet that deadline, or if anything happens in between, that we're constantly communicating. They also shared that it would be important for us to communicate to them the progress of the city since the last JLAC meeting. So last year in October, the city flew up to Tallahassee and gave a report of the status of where the city was at. They said that it would be to our advantage to submit some type of progress letter that kind of stated what we've done over the last year in terms of completing the 2018 audit, also perhaps mentioning that we completed the 5-year recovery plan, and also had 2 successful years of actually going through a budget that was approved ahead of time, as that's today, this year's the 2nd year that the city's actually approved their budget in advance. So they just wanted us to sort of use it as a way for us to kind of cheer about some of the successes that we've had, especially in light of the fact that a lot of new people will be coming on the committee, and they won't know a lot about the past of the city. And so this is an opportunity for us to kind of share some of our own progress. And they also shared that we probably should be doing this on a routine basis, so that because this is a public record, it allows us to be able to kind of share some of what's going on here at the city real time with them, as opposed to it taking a whole year to communicate with them. So we agreed, and I passed that on to the city manager. So we sent a letter to the city manager's office to review, to submit to JLAC, to basically state that we needed the additional time. And JLAC staff said that they were in agreement with our timeline and they would support our recommendation. So that was the status of that. And I will share that we do have a clean audit. It's just a clean audit with a modification. We've had 2 clean audits, it's just 2 clean audits with a modification,
Exactly.
which is the audit inventory of assets.
Yes.
So if you have any questions, I can take them offline.
Any questions for manager or Ms. Lazier,
Not really any question,
Vice Mayor?
Mr. Mayor, but thank you, Mrs. Lazier, Mr. Manager. Thank you for all your hard work. As you know, I've been adamant about those opinions because I knew that was ultimately, what was going to get us out of this fiscal slump that we're in. So I'm very excited to see that the manager is moving forward, on contracting out that service and getting our assets in order. And just thank you guys.
One up,
Mr. Mayor, Mayor.
Mr. Manager?
I would say that I think it's prudent, and I will be making a formal request to meet before JLAC at the next regularly scheduled meeting. So we'll be putting it in writing and request in consultation with myself and Assistant City Manager. I think it's very important that we preemptively do a presentation and preemptively go down there instead of being summoned to Tallahassee. I think it's very imprudent, along with a representative of the commission, to come down with us in regards to, number one, doing our yearly update with the governor's designee. As you all are aware, because of COVID-19, a lot of travel has been restricted. Our financial emergency board meetings have been virtual, but anytime we get to Tallahassee, we always schedule time to meet with the governor's designee in person. They can just go over updates, even though we do have weekly calls with them. They like to see our bright and shiny faces, especially if they have not came to South Florida. And so we want to make sure that we kind of have that contact. What I don't want is, as the mayor is aware, last year was very traumatic for us, last legislative session, with the request of various representatives for the city to be dissolved and various letters going to Miami-Dade County and various different things like that. And I think the biggest thing was really, until recently, until we brought on a PR firm, Opa-locka story really has not been going out, right? You see, we brought on a PR firm, good, negative, or indifferent. We make sure we provide information to the news media, let it be something positive or something negative or indifferent. And I think it's very important. And I think our elected representatives outside of Opa-locka only sees what they read in the media of the city's past and not presently what's going on. So it's up to us to write our own story and write our own narrative kind of moving forward. Over this last year, since I've been here, we've made outstanding, great strides in kind of moving the city forward, especially with a 5-year plan being approved by the state to start the financial recovery process. Because really, that's when the financial recovery process starts, that 5-year plan being approved by the state. So what I want to put emphasis on is that the city is making very much positive progress in regards to its audits and its financial emergency status. Understand the city is about 4 or 5 years behind because we haven't had a financial emergency plan approved by the state. And that's, like I said, that's when the recovery starts. So the 5-year recovery plan is just what it is, a 5-year recovery plan. And the state wants to see us act on that recovery plan within those 5 years. So I don't want to give any expectation that this audit or any other financial requirements is going to remove the city from financial emergency because that would not be a factual statement. But we are making the strides to move the city forward. And actually the time clock has finally started as the 5-year plan was approved. You got to remember, we were in pause in place for a while because there was no movement on the 5-year plan, no progress made as far as the 5-year plan and the financial recovery of the city. Now the city is actually really in financial recovery mode, right? Because the 5-year plan has been submitted, we're reviewing it. Mr. Anthony's doing multiple budget amendments. We're making moves in regards to our budgeting, our financial operations. So now there's finally movement. And that movement just started within the last 9 months. So we just have to realize that. Understand the year and date the city was put in financial emergency, but understand the city has not made any progress until recently when that 5-year recovery plan is approved. Yes, we got audits done, CITT and various different things. We did meet those financial requirements, which are all requirements of any municipal organization, regardless if you're in financial emergency or not. But it's important that the governor's designee emphasize that that 5-year recovery plan has to be submitted. And that's why they provided that firm deadline of a couple months ago. And we met that firm deadline because trust me, there are other cities' financial emergency that the state wants to expend their resources in assisting. But I will tell you the biggest thing as a city manager and as municipal government executive that I've experienced and heard is I never heard somebody say this. And I wish that when we do these orientations that I can get the governor's designee either out here or virtually for the newly elected official orientation. They have hope that Opa-locka will come out of financial emergency. There's cities in financial emergency that will never come out of financial emergency. Never, never. And so Opa-locka is in a position to come out of financial emergency. And that's a very significant statement. And I want that statement repeated when they make that visit, because that's something that's emphasized to us. I think every Friday, every call, that we're on the phone with Mr. Hunter or the Executive Inspector General. She said, listen, we have several cities and entities under financial emergency. Opa-locka is the only place that sees light to coming out of financial emergency. And I think that needs to be shared to the public. It needs to be shared with the commission and to understand the potential of what we have here and how we're moving the city forward.
Thank you, Ms. Manager. Anything else from Manager or Ms. Lazier? All right. I do want to, I guess, give kudos to Ms. Lazier and her team. One of the most important components to making sure that these audits are done is doing our bank reconciliations and making sure those are done. And from the last report I received, could you give a light where we are with those bank reconciliations?
One of the 99 findings included the lack of controls over the banking process. The city had not performed bank recs in quite some time. I believe even when we started back in 17, we were unable to identify any of the bank reconciliations that were done in the past. And so we implemented a process where we developed new policies and procedures surrounding bank reconciliations. And I must say that we've spent a lot of time over the last few months just trying to get updated on the bank reconciliations. And I'm happy to say that outside of just one bank account, all of the fiscal 19 bank reconciliations have been done for 19. Why that is significant is because every time we started an audit, we never had the bank reconciliations done. We were actually trying to do the bank reconciliations while the auditor was on site, which made the audit much more difficult. So we finalized all of the bank reconciliations except for one, and the city has about 20 bank accounts. So it's a lot of bank reconciliations that need to be performed. There's actually one done for each month. So 20 times 12 gives you an idea of how many of the bank reconciliations that need to be done. I'm also excited to say that this is the first time that the bank reconciliations were also performed by staff. So in the past, we've always had to have the consultants perform the reconciliations, but by virtue of us creating the new policy and procedure, we trained your staff, and 2 of your staff members who are currently on staff now were able to go through and prepare the bank reconciliation. So I think once people get a little bit of training and a policy and some structure is in place, it can be performed on a routine basis. And it doesn't take 2 years to prepare a bank reconciliation because they were actually able to do it in about 3 months to get up to date. So now we're also starting to do the fiscal 20 bank reconciliations. And for the main enterprise fund, all of the bank reconciliations for the enterprise fund have been completed up until September 28th. So we think that's phenomenal as well. We are working on the other bank reconciliations, but right now we're kind of focused on helping Mr. Anathan with the budget closeout and year-end closeout and some of the other things that are coming before the commission. But the bank reconciliations are definitely underway, and we're done with the 19 bank reconciliations, which is a much better position that we were in previous years. I'd say that one of the difficulties or challenges with the previous audits and with the audit firm has been the fact that the bank reconciliations weren't done. And right now we're in a better position. So that's a great thing.
Thank you, Ms. Lazier and Tri-Merge CPA for really creating a fiscal foundation for the city over these past years as we brought you here to do so. So you've been doing a stellar job, and I really appreciate that. And I brought this conversation for us on the commission and to the public so that everyone knows where we are, know the progress that we're making as a city. There's a lot of things going on, a lot of moving pieces. And I know we receive regular updates about our 4 major challenges, and finance is our #1 challenge that we focus on. But it's very important that we know where we are with the status of these audits, especially making sure we get these clean audits, with a qualified opinion. And that's very, very, very important. As Ms. Lazier said, the only thing that's holding us back is this inventory of physical assets, which I'm hoping we make sure we can get done for this audit cycle, because that will make sure that we reduce this time frame for us getting out of this financial oversight, which is critical to us standing on our own feet as a city and as a people and as a community. So much respect for taking the time to give an update to our residents and to everyone so that people know how we're progressing. So, Mrs. Zier?
I just also want to share it's a team effort. So it's not just the Tri-Merge staff, it's also the city staff. So I'm managing both city consultants as well as city employees. So I want to just make sure that we're stating that it's a team effort and a group effort within a department.
All right. So
Thank you.
sometimes I may not acknowledge everyone, but I want to make sure y'all, hey, I appreciate all y'all, everyone around here. We are a community and we are people. And we must move forward together because united we stand. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
All right. Any other discussion on this audit? All right. As you know, we also appointed an audit committee. And one of the important things to be before the audit committee was this audit. So after more consultation with Mr. Manager and Ms. Lazier and her team, we'll find out whether or not there's a need to formally call that audit committee together to go through this information. I'm pretty sure we will once we think about whether or not we're deciding about who we're going to select as to do this inventory of physical assets and also the audit. So please stay in tune to learn more about our audits. Next thing I wanted to make sure we discuss as a commission is an orientation for newly elected officials. As it's been a passion of mine is to make sure that those of us that serve here on this dais have the best education possible, because it's very difficult to be elected to a board on the city and have so many issues that you got to decide upon immediately upon swearing in. And it is on staff, it is on us and all of our partners to really get people prepared to take this role, to lead the people and do the duty that the people elected us to do. So I just wanted to take some time to make sure that we speak about what we will want to see in this orientation and hear the plan from city manager, city attorney, and city clerk about what is that plan to make sure that our newly elected officials are prepared for the job as soon as they're sworn in. So with that, Mr. Manager, could you lead the discussion?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As a city manager, I think one of the biggest luxuries that I have is always talking to the commission. Me being accountable to the city commission, mayor and vice mayor, I think one of my key roles, and they say this in ICMA all the time, city manager's role is to run the day-to-day operations of the city. City manager's role is also to train new elected officials. That's the city manager's role, to ensure new elected officials are briefed on and know the operational status of the city. So I appreciate the mayor in bringing this agenda item forward. The thought process first is to do a generalized update from the city manager's office. Sometime this month, I know the clerk has sent out dates. We're trying to kind of lock down a date. I know we're looking at before next Thursday, but I don't see necessarily that occurring. So we're going to try to kind of get this done as expedient as possible. We can kind of discuss dates while we're actually sitting up here. So what we're looking at is a city manager overview. I can only speak for the city manager's office as far as their overview of the city. And then in the month of December, we're looking to hold, and see, that's another issue we run into. December is one of our months that we don't hold a lot of meetings. So the commission would need to provide direction to myself and the city clerk and the city attorney, you all's availability and new elected officials, including their availability for the month of December. Because what we don't want to do is call multiple workshops in December, because you all usually beat me up. I did last year. Y'all was ready to polarize me. So I want to make sure that we have everybody's availability and we want a clear discussion. So I appreciate that, Mayor, because you guys can actually provide us with guidance on how December looks. And we're going to do segmented briefings. I don't want to do in one setting. As you know, the city has multiple departments, 4 major challenges. And I want to make sure that the departments have sufficient time in kind of briefing these major challenges in a detailed way. So we're probably going to segment them out 2 departments at a time per workshop until we're concluded and completed. At the end of that time, I think I want to turn on strategic planning mode in January. So based on those briefings that the city commission is being provided, then strategic direction can be provided to the commission, to the city manager's office. So that direction can be provided to the departments moving forward. But I think that cannot occur until those briefings are done. So there's an understanding of the status and where the city is. And then you guys can direct the priorities of the city manager's office moving forward based on the strategic planning legislation that we currently have in place in our code. So that's how I foresee it. The manager's review and orientation it's probably going to last about an hour, hour and a half, basically. Kind of goes over the role of the city manager's office, which most everyone is aware, and those that are new or will be kind of acclimated on that. One good thing is our League of Cities training is on YouTube. And so I will emphasize that our new elected officials watch the League of Cities training that was provided by the Florida League of Cities in regards to the duties and responsibilities of elected officials and the segmentation of duties of the elected official and the city manager's office, city attorney's role, as well as the city clerk's role in government operations. My biggest emphasis, as everybody is aware on the dais, is the form of government that we have. It is a city council manager form of government. The city manager runs the day-to-day operations. Commission provides the manager with day-to-day insight in regards to the direction they want to see staff in the city go. And the manager's office implements those plans appropriately, as long as they're legal and proper. And that implementation is done in most part with the consultation of the city attorney's office for personnel related matters and legal related matters, and the clerk's office in regards to other matters that occur. I work very closely with the city attorney's office, city clerk's office in regards to the running day-to-day operations of the city, which I think is essential. But I think, you know, the biggest thing as a city manager is to really emphasize the form of government that we have, the progress we've made in the year I've been here, how we want to move the city forward, and kind of look at that vision outwardly in the January, February timeframe.
All right, one thing I do want to, because I'm more concerned. I know from what I understand, the date of swearing in is November 19th, correct? Is that still the case?
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
All right, so November 19th, and our first commission meeting is December 9th. So I'm hoping that before that December 9th meeting, that's almost 3 weeks, that we can have those series of meetings with the commission, with staff to go through those challenges. How are we on those dates? Because that's a pretty tight time turnaround. And I don't know if has that been communicated to the new elected officials about that date and that plan?
Mr. Mayor?
Mhm.
Okay, so I have been in communication with the city attorney and city manager, and we are working on those dates. I spoke to the newly elected officials, and I indicated that we are working on that. I asked them what their availability is, and so we have that, but we don't have the set dates as of yet. But the thought process is to make sure that that takes place prior to them attending that first meeting in December, which is December 9th. And in addition to that, Miami-Dade County Commission on Ethics, they will also be scheduling ethics training for the newly elected officials, which is required on a yearly basis per Florida statute. So they don't have the date set for that, but that's another training that the newly elected officials will also be attending.
Got it. All right. And this is important because, as the city manager mentioned, one of the things that's coming up is our State of the City address. So we have to report to the people on what we've done over the past year and what is our goal for the upcoming year. And we want to make sure that at these State of the City's addresses, we are very clear that people understand the reports from our department. So these workshops is a dual thing because it's public forum. Not only does it give the newly elected officials an understanding of what has been done for each department and what goals have been achieved over the past year, it lets the public know those things in detail. And then after we do that orientation and proposed legislation, I think it was the last meeting before last, about putting an annual, making this an annual thing. to where we review our goals as a city. I mean, we review what we did as a city and plan out what we're going to do over the next year and make sure that this commission is clear with the manager what our priorities are and where we want to see the city move. And then we go from there and making sure that those things are achieved. So I'm excited about this new commission that's coming on board, new officials to bring just a new vision to the city. As always, it's been a very impactful process. And I want to make sure, Madam Attorney, because Madam Clerk said that they don't have the timeline for the Florida League of Cities ethics training. Will your office be able to provide a mini training just in case immediately to those elected officials so they start off on a good foot?
We had planned to do that individually with the commissioners and ethics, sunshine law, just general issues of governance. So I am waiting to hear back from the city clerk. As she mentioned, we've been talking about dates. We'll make ourselves flexible and available based upon their schedules.
Got it. Got it. All right. Any other comments or questions about the orientation for newly elected officials?
Not that yet.
Commissioner Bass?
I am elated to see this on the agenda for tonight. Thank you for adding it. If I may reminisce a little bit, 2 years ago, approximately when I became city commissioner, just fresh out, and you were there, you know, in my ear, mentoring me, even before to say, you know, like, you know, look out for this, you know, just, you know, keeping it real. And just having this on the agenda now for the new elected official, I am just, I'm elated again, because I don't want them to be where I was or any others that are gonna come after us. I'm glad that this is being put in place. So when we, or when they get into, you know, sitting where we are, they're not lost, not knowing where the city is going, not knowing where we came from, not knowing what the, you know, what is a line item in the whole 9 yards. It might sound, you know, minute to some people, but sitting here hearing terminologies that you have never heard before and the whole 9 yards, you can get lost. So I'm so happy that this is on the agenda. Thank you so much. And I'm looking forward to just being around and see where the city's heading. Thank you.
Much respect, Commissioner Bass. Anyone else? Vice Mayor Davis?
Similar sentiments. Mr. Mayor, thank you for proffering the item. As you know, as a newly elected official, it can be a lot, especially here in the city of Opa-locka. You know, we're no stranger to challenges. And like they say, you know, we might have our challenges, but, you know, we're not defeated. So, you know, thank you for extending this opportunity for those who are coming to join us to serve. And to the newly elected officials, please take this information and keep it with you, because you're going to need it. You're going to need it, and you're going to be faced with those scenarios. And remember, our city attorney, you know, is always your first layer. You know, any questions, you know, that's what our city attorney is here for. So please use them as a resource. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Exactly. It's a very difficult thing to manage a board under the sunshine. And one of the most important things is making sure that everybody is very clear about those rules, those regulations, and also how the business of the city is done. And to be prepared to take on this role, it's just, it takes a lot. And this is not no easy challenge here in the city of Opa-locka. So much respect for all those staff and everyone involved in making sure that our leaders are prepared to lead the city. So if there's no further discussion items, any other last words before we close out? All right, do I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Moved by Commissioner Bass,
Second.
second by Vice Mayor Davis. Everyone, please mask up. We are still in the pandemic. Take care of yourselves and be safe. Have a good evening. Take care.